すごいんだよこのグローブ。実はすでに2代目なんだけど、初目さん強度の調整までしてくれて。
ああ、初目だ。うららか。
Hello everyone, it's 2Fast2Movie. I'm your host Ben, and with me today is my co-host Jose, here to talk about Season 5, Episode 3 of My Hero Academia, Clash, Class A versus Class B. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. We upload new videos every week, and spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. Alright, Jose, first of all, we just gotta talk. Opening thoughts, how do you feel about this episode today?
I really did like this episode. Like, it was kind of simple, but at the same time, it was kind of the bridge we needed to like get into the main action that we're going to probably be seeing most of the season.
Yeah, I honestly, one of the things that I liked about this is it gave us immediate answers to a big lingering question that we had on this of just, do any of the previous users of this quirk know what just happened? And All Might did enlighten us on some things, and in other things we are still very left in the dark, which is good because I like a good mystery. And then right. It looks like after this though we're going to be in another tournament arc-esque type deal, you know, at one of the famous pitfalls of the shonen genre. So we're going to see if My Hero manages to keep this engaging, or if if this is going to turn into another cardinal sin of the shonen genre.
This episode begins from the tail end of Deku's dream, where we can see All For One bestowing powers to the first user of One For All. After awakening, Deku makes his way to meet up with All Might to discuss these visions of the vestiges of One For All. Deku asks All Might for answers, only to find out that All Might has had some visions in the past, but never memories this vivid, and never a conversation with any of the previous users. All Might tells Deku that One For All passes down the feelings and emotions of the previous users, which is part of the visions he's seen. They discuss the mentioned Singularity, and theorize that it could be the quirk Singularity Doomsday Theory, a theory that quirks will evolve to become uncontrollable in coming generations. All Might tells Deku that he does not know what these visions mean, but only that they are his ally and he should trust them.
Yeah, this is again, as we were previously stating, we got immediate answers, but then like very left in the dark. So I guess like first thing is just, I was genuinely thrown off when All Might was like, yeah, I've never seen this before, because I feel like we've been presented that All Might is like this Superman or Jesus like figure that is like the perfect being and like the world's savior, and then to have him just know nothing about this part of his quirk is kind of astonishing, honestly.
Right, we had thoughts about whether All Might did know about what Deku experienced, and in a way we were right, but in the same way we were kind of wrong.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of like the feelings versus the memories, like we have definitely seen some of what All Might's experienced before, and I feel like that line where he talks about feelings that are passed through, we've had that. We've seen these moments of motivation where Deku is seemingly pulling from these vestiges to understand his quirk better in order to basically, I think it was like one time, it was either when he went from 10% to 20% or like 15 to 20%. I forget what the actual number was, but there was a moment where he had that instant connection back to the vestiges that kind of allowed that like mid-crisis level up, if you will. Right,
because I believe he mentions that he was, how did it word in the anime, containing the egg, or like keeping it from like the microwave kind of test with Gran Torino, that he managed to be able to control 20% with ease.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we know that this is all, up until now, the show has been about Deku kind of following this in the steps of All Might and having to inherit this man's not just legacy, but honestly the heaviest burden ever of being the symbol of peace And we know that Deku's not going to be able to step into that role for a long time. But now it feels like Deku's going to be turning into something a lot more than All Might, which kind of goes to... I feel like this is one of the first moments for me where I can actually see the opening of the first episode where Deku says, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero ever. Like, I feel like this is the first time where we're really getting a decent peek at what that is going to mean.
Right. And one thing to consider with that is that we're actually very still early in the anime compared to the manga and such. So we still got a long ways to go to see Deku's, not just his improvement, but his steps to becoming this number one hero.
I honestly, this is like one of the this is definitely going to turn into a very long running anime, but I am glad to hear that the manga is in its final chapters, which means there is an actual end game. God knows that all of us One Piece fans and Naruto fans have been just jerked around too many times to deal with another long running anime with no end game. So this makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that are way out in the future, we got to talk about this new bit on the Singularity theory. So, First of all, we did talk about this last episode, but we're finally getting something that is a little bit more tied into what we've seen so far in the sort of magic system of quirks. And we had an episode on this earlier between when Bakugo and Shinji are like basically doing glorified babysitting for these uber powerful children.
Right, during the what is it called? The classes for the provisional license.
Yeah, it was basically like community service because they just fucked up real bad on their test, I'm pretty sure. And it's the basic equivalent. You know, you fail your test, can't become a hero, now you're a nanny for some super powerful... when I was watching that, I couldn't help but think of the babysitter in The Incredibles for Jack Jack.
Oh my gosh, I just saw that too, like not too long ago, and I enjoyed it as much as I first saw it.
It's uncannily familiar, right?
It very is, especially with that babysitter's case of just not knowing what's going on. This situation is a little bit different, but at the same time, it's on that same level.
Yeah, it's the same. It was the same amount of unruly, and it's weird because this show presents the Singularity Doomsday Theory in that episode, and it's brief. You'll miss it in a heartbeat. But the fact of the matter is that this is actually kind of a terrifying premise or idea that one day there's just going to be these children born that aren't even going to be able to sustain themselves because the quirks that they inherit are going to be too powerful. Which, when I say it out loud, it's really fucking dark. Like, that's an entire generation of children that are either going to cause their own destruction or destroy everyone around them. Right. But
I think one kind of example we could see was the mention of the breeding we did mentioned last episode, how Shoto came to be, I guess, the successor of the Todorokis because of his quirks.
Yeah, they even go back far as like pointing back to Endeavor of just like Endeavor is again someone that is extremely questionable, and the ethics of that person for quirk breeding essentially, or I believe they call it quirk marriage in it. Yeah, it's gross. It's not a good thing, but Todoroki is a fantastic example of how that can be done, but it also just makes us think of like what happens when there's just some accidents that happen. Like, imagine Todoroki but not being able to control anything that he does.
I can't imagine that because he's just one of the top students.
Yeah, and he's also already like frighteningly powerful when you can consider not just like what he can do with fire, but what he can do with ice. He can basically not only change the entire terrain around him, but demolish buildings in a single blow, basically.
Yeah, like we seen very early on in the show, the very first instance we see Todoroki use his power, and the whole building becomes ice.
Yeah. And then in the even in our little recap episode, he enlarges an entire city block. So potentially, with his doomsday theory, means that at some point there could be a wee toddler version of Todoroki that can just level like 5 or 6 city blocks by sneezing.
Oh boy, what a sight that would be.
Yeah, and then to further this, and I feel like this is a real nice clip into what the end game of the show what might be, is the line of "We are past the singularity." So right. We are like we're just hitting this point where we don't know how, but somehow the original One for All seems to understands where the evolution of quirks are.
Yeah, I think that's probably because One for All as a quirk is actually a pretty good example of this the quirk singularity doomsday theory. Because notice how as each user gets it, that user is just a lot more powerful than the previous one.
Interesting. Oh shit. I think that there's another really good example of this just sleeping under us. Remember how they said that All Might was able to control One for All right away?
Right. Yeah.
Deku can't because it's too powerful. Previously in the show, it's theorized that this is because Deku's body wasn't strong enough to take on the strain. But we have already seen that Deku has broken 100% of All Might's power. At one point, I'm pretty sure he even used 1,000% without completely destroying himself.
Or even barely, but I think you're right.
There is a solid chance that the singularity has happened It could mean that the singularity has happened specifically to Midoriya. But one thing that I'm curious about is because of the... this is... Okay, wild crackpot theory. Bear with me, everybody. If All for One had the ability to sort of pass on these quirks, and this is where One for All came from, clearly these quirks are tangentially connected. All for One is probably one of the only quirks that would give its wielder an inherent understanding of how quirks work and evolve in the first place. What if these quirks are somehow tied to the creation of not quirks, what were previously called meta powers or meta humans in the first place? Because there was clearly a turning point in history where this thing suddenly happened. What if this power is somehow tied to that?
That's definitely a very good theory.
I'm just saying it would make sense why he's talking about the singularity and potentially why the singularity could be being used in a wider term instead of just for Midoriya. So I feel like if it's just for Midoriya, then it's kind of a weird thing, since the singularity has previously only been used to talk about a mass societal or a mass event for the human race.
I think probably because, well, I think this is just because of the first One for All is mostly talking about One for All, but it definitely leaves a lot of questions and, like, I guess a little bit of concerns as well throughout the My Hero world as far as the singularity goes.
I mean, I guess, again, this is all just a theory, so I guess we have to wait. However, there are things that are happening immediately down this line, though, as well as some things that Deku can look into. So, after this conversation, All Might and Deku make their way back to class and administrative duties, only to run into Aizawa and Shinso, of all people, where it seems Eraserhead has been giving private tutelage to Shinso. Later, when 1A meets for joint exercise with 1B, Shinso appears in a new outfit ready to begin his hero training. After a very edgy monologue, he's put into the joint training exercises, working on both teams in different rounds. In the first round, he works with Class 1A, a team consisting of Froppy, Chargebolt, Red Riot, and Anima. All is going well until Class 1B's Kosi and Shinshida get the drop on them with a diversion and subdue Red Riot and Anima in seconds. When the match seems just about decided, Shinso uses his mask to seemingly imitate Kosi's voice and mind controls Shinshida, turning the tables. All throughout this, Midoriya looks on at Shinso, remembering how during the sports festival, Shinso awakened his ability to see the vestiges of One for All for the first time. Midoriya now has his eyes set on Shinso. So, let's talk about that new outfit. It is just a training... Most of it is like just a training outfit for now, but there are a couple notable things that have been added. Namely, my boy has a new mask and some very familiar looking wraps.
Right, and this mask seems to have a lot of secrets that we're just going to find out more information on, hopefully, later on.
We've only seen him do one thing with it, and it was like he did a button, and it seemed to be just like one out of many transformations he can do with it. So, like, we know previously that his powers work off of if someone answers a question from him, he can mind control them. We know that it allowed him to imitate his enemy's voice so that someone else could answer the question and fall for his trap. It was very clear that that's what was happening with it.
To kind of recap how we kind of determine this, right before Shinso imitated the voice, we see him turn the knobs a little bit. The mask sort of transforms a little bit, not that much, but enough to be noticeable. And then we hear Kosei's voice talking to the Beast guy, and the Beast willingly answers because he's not really paying attention that much. And then, just like that, becomes brainwashed.
It was actually a really good moment. I am wondering though, like the mask alone, because for a second I thought it was like, oh, maybe it takes a recording and then throws it back, but it seems more like somehow adjusting the mask makes his voice sound like his opponent's voice. So I'm sure we're going to get a flashback to when this thing was made next episode, and we're going to get some answers on how this thing works. I'm sure it's right around the corner, but it's just, this is such a fun thing to look at. And then I guess my second question is, what the fuck is that man going to do with those wraps?
Hopefully we see him in action with this soon, because I think the only action we have seen from it was in the intro.
Do we see him using the wraps in the intro?
Yeah, he starts to like throw it like how Eraserhead does it, right as Midoriya's charging in from him. Oh, so you know what? That makes a lot of sense that he would take on a very similar style as Eraserhead, because Eraserhead he also has an ability that just nerfs other people. So it seems like if you're playing support, you might need a little bit of help with your opponent's mobility / protection for yourself. So that does kind of check out. Right.
It's gonna be again. This is an exciting thing because this is a character that's been teased, but this is our first time actually really getting in with him. I guess one of my big things with him though is he is just now starting his hero's journey. Why is Eraserhead helping him? Is it because they have similar quirks? I wouldn't say that. I think my guess would be Shinso either came to him and they somehow managed to work something out, or probably because Eraserhead recognized that Shinso needs support items to make him
essentially the hero that he wants to be. Because don't forget, he was I believe they called it general studies student early on. Yeah, so he wasn't anywhere near a hero course student, and we only find out about his interest in hero when we first meet him during the sports festival, and that his interest we see now that I think Aizawa says he wants to transfer into the hero course.
Yeah. And I kind of like everyone's motivations for being a hero is a little different. I will say Shinso has a weird point of him because it seems like a lot of people in universe are never sure if he's controlling their actions or not. At least that's kind of the let up that they have with the flashbacks we've seen and the whole conflict that was happening in the sports festival previously. Which I really don't want this to be the case, but there is Eraserhead actually I think is one of the only people that could deal with it, that could deal with this. I think about it. Because I was about to say, what if Shinso is controlling Eraserhead to allow him in? But Eraserhead's the one person that can shut down other people's quirks. So maybe this is genuine.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, do we know about how many people he can control at once? Because
no, we've only ever seen him do one person at a time.
Yeah, so if he can't control more, well, one, that's actually pretty good
That's
for him.
fucking overpowered. I don't know about that. Oh, God. But moreover, I'm looking forward to seeing what Midoriya is trying to do with this.
Right, because as Ochako says briefly, this is going to be their second rematch since the sports festival. And Deku struggled hard against him.
Yeah.
No doubt Deku has to come up with some plans way beforehand, because we do know that Deku will be fighting against him in the final match, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I have some thoughts on, but we'll talk about that when we do the upcoming episode. I feel like, first of all, we've known this since the beginning, and one of the things that Deku has always had above everyone else is, even though he is really a strength and mobility quirk type, but his brains and his strategy is usually where he wins out. Sometimes he does resort to brute force, and his quirk does save him in those regards. But otherwise, he's constantly trying to be calculated, and he's constantly trying to figure out how to maximize things against different opponents. I mean, hell, he's the person who figured out how to make his quirk work for him better and what he needed to be designed for his costume in order to complement him. Like, he's a very smart person, and I see Deku coming out on top on this one. I see him coming up with some plan. He has this whole match to watch and figure out what this guy can do, and then like he has such an advantage on Shinso that I don't think it's even a question. I'm sure there will be some ups and downs in there, but moreover, I'm curious as to, it seems like he wants to use Shinso so that he can get further into his one-for-all quirk and have a more detailed conversation with the vestiges again.
Ooh, that would be interesting, though.
Yeah. Because that's what I was reading, with him looking over and like immediately flashing back. Because like he looks over, we flash back to the stadium, we see him seeing the vestiges for the first time, and then there is just this smile and excitement on Midoriya's face. Like, I feel like this is where he's going, man. He's a smart kid. He knows his game plan.
Yep, don't forget, this is the guy who takes notes on almost every single hero he comes across.
And we saw that today, too. 1B marches out, first thing that comes out, it's the motherfucking notepad. This guy is, like, if he... the way I look at him is, like, if he didn't become a hero, he would have been, like, a sports analyst.
Oh, definitely.
Or, like a hero analyst on the news or something. Like, I think he would have been perfectly happy doing that job. But, hey... man's becoming a pro hero instead.
Yeah, I actually remember this fan art where it's like much later on in the My Hero story, but it was this UA student who wanted to get Deku's autograph. Deku turns around and sees it. It's like, oh, I know you. I saw you at the sports festival. And Deku wants that hero's autograph. And then it was really nice. It was a wholesome moment.
Oh, I love that. I mean, we're going to be getting some more of wholesome Deku upcoming, but first things first, we're going to have a big old fight. So, in the preview, we see Class 1A and B battling out. Narration dictates that 1B will have 1A on the ropes, but yet it is titled, Make It Happen, Shinso. So, needless to say, this is going to be a very Shinso-heavy episode. I'm like 90% positive we're going to get answers on the mask.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely see also his new skills and what he's done in training, so...
I can't wait to see the full costume. Because he's still in his he's in his gym clothes with these two like actual gadgets on him, but that's it. Like we're getting there, but like this is one of the few times that I'm still nervous, but I'm excited for at least this first episode, because I mean, okay, I said in the beginning of the video, but based off of the preview that we just got, it looks, and the opening theme, it looks like we're going to be in a tournament arc for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't, knowing how, well, not necessarily the tournament arcs, but like moments where the classes are split up into teams. We usually see a few teams go on for either the whole episode, the majority of it, and the rest is kind of quick and done with. But there's also to consider that this is also Class B's sort of kind of reintroduction.
Yeah. I would argue that this is kind of their debut, actually, because we've had Class B just kind of in the background, but we've never met this many of them on this scale.
Yeah, especially with the whole name introduction in the beginning, and now we're getting quirk details from President Mike through the little freezes.
Yeah, they love their bumper cards to give us as much information on these people as possible. Because again, My Hero just has entirely too large of a cast for them not to do that now. Like, right. I swear to God, I'd forget people's names if it weren't for the fact that every time there's a cut to commercial, we get someone's name, their quirk, their blood type, and their favorite hobby.
Not to mention their birthday, their hobby. Well, you just said hobby, yeah.
Yeah, well, birthday, blood, there's something else. Favorite food.
There you go.
Yeah, we get a lot when it comes to these, so it's always a good dive in, but we'll see. Personally, I like the shonen genre to an extent. I really don't want to see My Hero going down a lot of the pitfalls of the shonen genre. Last season was my favorite season of My Hero, and I just hope that they can... The first half of that season had such good story, it had such good emotional beats. We knew that someone was either going to die or lose their quirk, and that happened, and the stakes were phenomenal. And I'm just hoping that this is going to kind of hit the same stride soon. So I really don't want us to be stuck in... I really, really don't want us to be stuck in a tournament arc for too long. But if we do end up stuck in it, then I hope that we start getting some interesting plot details coming out of this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The shonen, like you said, the genre, I've been watching it for I don't even know how long, but...
Too long.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Well, if that's the case, then you all will just have to come back here next week to find out exactly what's going to be happening. So, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. We are currently also covering Invincible, Falcon and the Winter Soldier on this program, and we do a bunch of sequels on our podcast, The Return of the Movie, which you can find anywhere you get podcasts. We're on all of them. We also have other shows in the comedy and commentary world, including Interview Philly, which just got into a couple film festivals, including the Phoenix Genre International Film Festival. Yeah, that's a big one. So be sure to check that out. And hey, It's 2Fast2Movie.